What's going on, everybody? This is Jacob Wolf with ESPN ESPORTS, and I wanted to break down Project A. On Tuesday night, Riot Games announced at various events across the world and online a bunch of new games, including a card game. They alluded to an MMO. They announced a animated series, but one of the things that caught my eye in particular was a new tactical first-person shooter that they are announcing, which is codenamed Project A. Across Twitter last night, I saw various different tweets from people like Morello, who is a longtime League of Legends developer, very famous, talking about working on this project. And it's really interesting because this is a space that I think deserves something sort of like this. Looking at the trailer and, we'll watch it together and sort of walk through it piece by piece. It looks like something that is very influenced from the likes of Counter-Strike and Overwatch, both. And I think that looking at the sort of space in general, that there's a lot of opportunity. So we saw at the Xbox announcement earlier this year that Crossfire was coming to the US for the first time, and that's a game that's really, really popular in China that sort of resembles Counter-Strike, the original version, Counter-Strike 1.6, but sort of built on top of that. China, that is the biggest first-person shooter in that country, and there's an opportunity there, I think, for Riot, a company that's owned by a Chinese company, Tencent, and also that generally has a big market share there with League of Legends. League of Legends being one of the biggest esports titles in all of China. I think that they have an opportunity to really take over some of the market share that Crossfire has been doing for the last couple of years. And so looking at Project A, I think that this is something that's really interesting. This is something that I heard before it was announced, that they were bringing in people from Overwatch and from Counter-Strike and from other communities to playtest this, give them some feedback. We don't know a specific release date yet. However, it does say that it's in early development and they show some film. So let's give it a watch together and let's break down some of what it is.
Hey everyone, I'm Anna, and I'm the executive producer on one of those games you just saw, codenamed Project A. We've talked about our philosophy on developing new games here at Riot, but I figured we could also show you some. We're making new games, and this one's different, so here it is. Project A is our character-based tactical shooter. It's competitive. It has precise gunplay.
Immediately, this reminds me of Counter-Strike in terms of the way that it works and sort of looking and the way that it fires. I mean, even the guns look very realistic in the sort of the Counter-Strike way, right? The animation style very clearly is influenced by that, but also it looks a little bit more if you look up here, it looks a little bit more in the kill feed animated, and I guess in the Riot Games sort of sphere of influence, right? But immediately that when I saw that clip, that looks very Counter-Strike-esque.
It's set on a beautiful near-future Earth, and it has a lethal cast of characters, each with their own unique abilities.
So that grenade that was just thrown, that is very Overwatch, I think. Looking at the animation style of that is something that clearly looks very influenced by Overwatch, and I think that when you see that, I think that when she said there's going to be ultimate abilities for each character, and it's a character-based game, that's something that's that sort of Team Fortress 2 Overwatch style of gameplay where each character has something different, right? So also things like Apex Legends where that has sort of been brought into for the first time. You have various different characters that have different abilities. That's really interesting. That sort of adds a new layer to something that Counter-Strike doesn't have, where everything is very equal and it's a guns-based game, not necessarily a character-based game.
This is our take on a competitive shooter. We promise that just like League, we're in this for years and years to come. With Project A, we're staying true to the high-consequence gameplay of tac shooters. But we want to evolve the space. We want a tac shooter with...
That wall reminds me of May, by the way. That's a really interesting sort of allusion to Overwatch.
More creativity, more expression, and a lot more style. In Project A, your abilities create amazing tactical opportunities for your gunplay to shine.
So that was something that's really interesting to me, right? So one of the biggest criticisms I have of Overwatch, I think, from a spectator perspective, is that it's too fast. The Overwatch gameplay is really hard to watch if you've never played Overwatch. You have to play Overwatch to necessarily understand it and for it to be sort of used in a way and viewed in a way that makes sense. It's a feedback that I get a lot. I watch esports sometimes with family and relatives, and I think that when I do that, they very much, understand other games better than Overwatch. My family came to the Overwatch Atlanta homestand, and that was their first in-person event this year. And it was really hard for them to follow along as people who didn't necessarily play that, whereas previously watching things like League of Legends with them, that they sort of got it because of the camera style. And so first-person shooters sort of present an interesting, dynamic of how to view them. And I think that the problem with Overwatch is it's so fast. Characters like Tracer and some of these others are so quick that you don't necessarily know what's going on. That was probably the fastest clip in all of this trailer for Project A, and it's slow enough that I think that people would be able to digest that in the same way that they digest Call of Duty better than they do Overwatch. So that's interesting. I think that's the biggest question I have for this game is going to be speed.
With a crew of veteran developers who have a deep passion and a wide range of experience in the FPS space. But it's not enough to have the right team. We also need to solve the right problems. But what does that really mean? Well, we're all tired of seeing our bullets not register because of low server tick rates. We keep hearing buzzwords like dedicated servers, but almost nothing about low ping or how a game plans to fight Peeker's advantage. But with Project A, we're going big on things like global.
This reminds me a lot of target practice in Counter-Strike, where you go in and you try to shoot a distance with various different guns. That's what that looks like.
Infrastructure and netcode designed to go to war on Peeker's advantage. You'll hear more technical details as we get closer to launch, but just know, we know, these are critical things to get right. Now let's talk about the cheaters. We know you hate second-guessing if you really lost, or if someone was running an aimbot or a wall hack. From
it's hard
day
not to
one,
laugh at this.
We have put
this is somebody who I really hate some of the ways that I really hate some of the ways that they deal with League of Legends online in terms of people who cheat and quit. So this is really interesting that they're talking about this.
To preserve the integrity of your matches. We want to be firm in our commitment here because this matters to us, and we know it really matters to you. And these are just some examples of what we mean when we say we want to do a character-based tactical shooter right. We're keeping the fundamentals that make this genre so...
it's basically an op.
so competitive, but also bringing some new additions. We're going heads down for a while, but expect to hear more from us in 2020. In the meantime, keep an eye on our Riot Games Twitter feed for any updates and maybe a few cool teases. Thanks, everyone.
Really interesting. Again, I want to go back. I think that there's a really interesting space for that doesn't currently exist. I think that Riot, being the big company that they are and having sort of League of Legends around the world, we saw a few days ago that before this announcement that they changed the League of Legends launcher to the Riot launcher, making it seem like they would have all of their games, the card game, Legends of Runeterra, the fighting game that's coming out, and this all in the same client, so it would encourage crossplay from game to game. Seeing that, I think that Riot has a really interesting opportunity to advertise within a client that is already heavily trafficked in League of Legends to players that are interested in these sort of things. This is something that I think could sort of transcend in a way that some of the other first-person shooters don't right now. I think that Riot's reputation is really strong across the globe with League of Legends, and so I think there are really high expectations on this. I'm really interested to sort of see what they do with it in the next couple of years as they work towards release. What do you guys think of it? Leave some comments in the description below. I'm really interested to see what you all think about the first-person shooter marketplace as it is and how Project A will affect that. Till next time, thanks for watching. Keep it locked here on ESPN.com/esports.